Hi, my name is Carlo Thomas, and I will be discussing visual perceptual and visual motor deficit. What is visual perceptual visual motor deficit? It's a disorder that affects the understanding of information that a person sees or the ability to draw or copy. Characteristics seen in people with learning disabilities, such as dysgraphia or nonverbal LD, can result in missing subtle differences in shapes or printed letters, losing place frequently, struggling with cutting, holding a pencil too tightly, or poor hand-eye coordination. There are types of visual processing issues, such as visual discrimination issues. That's kids having difficulty seeing the difference between similar letters, such as D and B or P and Q, and they have a tendency to swap those letters out because they cannot decipher between the two. Another one is visual figure ground discrimination issues. This is when the kid may not be able to pull out a shape or a character from his background, and they will most likely have trouble finding a piece of information on a page, one specific piece of information that they would need. Sequencing issues. They have difficulty telling the order of symbols, words, and images, and they may struggle to write answers on a separate sheet of paper or skip lines when they're actually reading. They may even reverse letters, numbers, and words. Another one is visual motor processing. Kids have difficulty using feedback from the eyes to coordinate the movements of the other parts of the body. Writing within lines or margins would be tough, and a lot of these kids may also have trouble walking and navigating a classroom, bumping into things, and also have trouble copying from a book. Long-term and short-term visual memory issues. Kids have a hard time remembering what they've seen. If they see something, they read a sentence in the page, they may forget exactly what they read and what they saw. They also have trouble remembering what they read using a calculator or a keyboard. Spatial issues, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. They have trouble telling where objects are in space. That kind of goes back to the motor issues, where they have trouble kind of understanding how far something is from one another. Maybe a desk is on the other side of the room, they think, but it's really right in front of them, and they have trouble deciphering that. Closure issues. These are when kids have issues identifying an object when only certain parts are visible. They may recognize a truck if it's missing wheels, a person in a drawing that is missing a facial feature. Kids may also have great difficulty with spelling because they can't recognize a word if just one letter is missing. So those are some processing issues. So for kids with visual processing issues in school, there's some strategies for some of those students, such as avoiding grading handwriting. The handwriting will not be top notch, so avoid grading the handwriting. They should allow students to dictate creative stories, providing alternatives for written assignments, especially with smaller kids. Instead of maybe having them write something, maybe have them draw something, have them maybe draw and cut things out, which also will help out with their visual issues as well. Restrict copying tasks, writing a ton of notes on a board and having them try to copy all the notes down. That's something that teachers could restrict for those students. Provide tracking tools such as a ruler or text windows. Using large print books. This is something that I use for a student that I work with who is mostly blind in one eye. We use large print books and notebooks with larger lines on them. Makes it easier to read, makes it easier for them to see, especially when it comes to line paper. They can actually see the lines in the paper when they write, because they do have trouble writing straight across the line and even within the margins, which are also enlarged in those notebooks. Plan to order or check out books on tape. That also helps. Some of these kids cannot, they can read a book, but they have trouble either remembering information from the book or even, or really, retaining information, I think, is the big thing. So ordering books on tape would be very important. And experimenting with different paper types, pastels, graph, and embossed raised line paper. I just talked about different paper types. Not every kid in who has a visual perception deficit will be able to write on regular paper. They will need to use different types of paper, as I mentioned before, pastels, graph paper, even the notebooks with the larger lines and larger margins. There are more strategies. For younger students, use non-writing activities such as cutting with scissors and making shapes. Uh, as I said previously, not having smaller kids write as much, but have them practice using scissors and making shapes. So when they get familiar with using shapes, and two, cutting with scissors helps them kind of focus and get lined up when they have to cut out a certain shape. Avoiding visually complex worksheets. I feel like this is more older when you get into middle school, high school. The more complex the worksheet, the more stuff on the worksheet. I feel like that's where you would lose kids with those visual issues. Modifying assignments by shortening the assignments. If you put notes on the board, if they take notes, maybe instead of having this one kid copy down an entire page of notes, maybe having copy down the important bullet points that they should know instead of having copy down an entire page. Study skill interventions. Ask the kid how he's studying, how he or she is doing class, and figure out what ways that you can help them study for tests, study for quizzes, even study for the next day's assignment differently than maybe what they might be doing, because what they might be doing may not be working. This is the most important one. Acknowledge honestly that the student is having a hard time. A lot of times, and I think this is kind of a societal thing, teachers, administrators have a hard time telling the student that, hey, you are having a hard time. You have to be honest with the kids. If the kids are having a hard time, you should probably let them know, we know you're having a hard time and that we want to help you and figure out a way for you to not have such a hard time. While teaching a child with the visual processing disorder at school is important, the home of the child also can have an effect on him or her. Here are tips on things to be done for a VP child at home. Learn as much as you can about visual processing disorder, things that you can do at home, things that actually would work in school, things that couldn't complement what they do in school on a daily basis. Observe and take notes on what happens with your child in the home. Um, Maybe something that they're doing at home could translate to something they're doing in school, or vice versa. If you notice something, write it down. Maybe you can take it to the teacher and say, I noticed this from my child last night. Is he or she doing it here, or can this help him or her in your class? Write out schedules or instructions clearly. I think that also goes into the school setting as well. The schedules and instructions should be laid out step by step and bit by bit, not having them get confused by the instructions or schedules, having everything laid out piece by piece clearly that they can understand the first time. Offer lots of practice, and you have to celebrate all the victories that your child has. A lot of times these kids do realize that they're having a hard time in school or at home or playing sport or with friends. You might not be able to see something, so you also have to really celebrate the good things that they do um, in their life, any aspect of it, but also acknowledge, and I think it goes back to the original point, acknowledge that they are having a tough time with what they're doing and know that you're there to help. And now I have a video to show. Hopefully it works. So that's just one therapy that's used to help kids who have visual motor problems, especially that visual spatial, and getting them used to. And just one kid's playing soccer, getting them used to moving from place to place, box to box, as the video showed, and to the point where this child was actually playing soccer based on this WOW vision therapy. And these are my references: Learning Disabilities of America, Teaching Community, and Understood for Learning and Attention Issues. Thanks so much for your time, and thank you for listening.